A name that has become synonymous with rest and relaxation. For centuries, Spa and nearby towns have welcomed travelers in search of peace and contemplation. But once each summer, the silence of these forests is broken, for Spa is also the site of the world's most heroic road circuit and the home of the Grand Prix of Belgium. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Since 1925, the roads from Spa to Stavelot to Malmedy have hosted auto racing. Today, the hills above those roads will be covered by Belgians in their thousands, hoping that native son Terry Boutsen can extend his Grand Prix winning streak to 2 in his home Formula One race. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to Spa, Belgium, where if there were ever an event in which we could bring you the smells as well as the sights and sounds of Grand Prix racing, this is where we would choose to do it. The aroma of the Ardennes forest is that of pine trees and moist earth, and mixed with the exhaust of high-tech Formula One engines, it is an intoxicating brew indeed. Grand Prix racing began on the roads in places like this, and so the names of these corners are familiar to fans everywhere. La Source, Eau Rouge, Stavelot, and Blanchimont. It is a great and terrifying racetrack, and who better to talk about that than a man who has driven here many times, our Formula One analyst, David Hobbs. David, this is where it all began, and it's nice to be back home.
It certainly is, Bob, and of course we're standing by the banks of Eau Rouge, a little stream that runs under the road and of course gives its name to one of the most frightening and breathtaking corners in all of racing, let alone Formula One. It is a real mind-blowing corner. This afternoon, I'm just not sure what sort of race we're in for. We're either in for a bust as Ayrton Senna and his Honda McLaren disappears into the Ardennes forest, or we're in for a great race, and I just really can't make up my mind at the moment. As for Thierry winning in front of his home crowd, I don't think he's going to do it today. He qualified fourth very well, but a guy who was a bit of a sleeper yesterday afternoon in qualifying and probably didn't show what he really could do is Alessandro Nannini, who you remember had such a great run in Hungary just a couple of weeks ago, and this morning he was a very close second in that all-important warm-up. So look for those Benettons to really shine this afternoon here in the forest. But as I say, I just can't tell you what sort of race we're going to have. It may be a Senna walkaway, but if it's not, we're going to have a good race.
And, of course, weather is always a factor here in Belgium. Here are the driver standings coming into round 11 of the World Championship at Spa. Ayrton Senna leads arch-rival Alain Prost by 10 points, followed by Gerhard Berger and Terry Boutsen. On the manufacturer's table, McLaren has a handy lead over Ferrari, Williams, and Benetton, but the season has many races yet to run. Beautiful Spa, Belgium, which each year ships tens of thousands of bottles of the mineral water that has given its name to the town, and the town has passed that name into the vocabulary of the world. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium is brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. By Pirelli Tires, original equipment on the world's finest automobiles. And by Quaker Steak. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. We'll be back to introduce the starting grid for the Grand Prix of Belgium and get David's turn-by-turn analysis of this mammoth and majestic race course.
At Acura, we believe that the best way to discourage limited thinking is to design cars in an environment without limits. The NSX, precision-crafted performance from Acura.
Welcome back to Spa, Belgium, where there are only 6 grandstands surrounding this 4.3-mile racetrack, but plenty of room on the hillside for tens of thousands of fans expected today. With that, here's the way our field will line up. On the pole for a record 48th time in his career, his 6th of the season, the 2-time defending Spa winner, Ayrton Senna of Brazil in the McLaren. Next to him, his McLaren Honda teammate, Gerhard Berger of Austria, who will turn 31 years of age on Monday. On row 2, Frenchman Alain Prost in the Ferrari, 10 points down to Senna in the championship, coming in quickest in the morning warm-up by 0.8 of a second. Next to him, the darling of this Belgian crowd, native son Terry Boutsen in the Williams Renault, the Hungarian winner 2 weeks ago. On row 3, Nigel Mansell of Great Britain in the Ferrari, coy about his promises to retire at year-end. Next to him, Sandro Nannini of Italy in the Benetton Ford, second fastest in the morning warm-up. On row 4, Riccardo Patrese of Italy in the second Williams Renault with an improved Renault engine for this race. Next to him, Nelson Piquet, the three-time world champion from Brazil in the Benetton after a heavy crash during Saturday qualifying. Row 5 will be all Tyrrell. Jean Alesi from France driving the Cosworth-powered car on Pirelli tires. Next to him from Japan, teammate Satoru Nakajima in the second Tyrrell Cosworth. On row 6 will be Osguri Suzuki of Japan in the first of two LaRousse Lamborghini-powered cars in the field. Next to him, Italy's Ivan Capelli in the first of the Leighton House cars. On row 7 will be Stefano Modena of Italy in the Brabham Judd, who improved from 21st on Friday to 13th in Saturday's qualifying. Next to him will be Brazilian Mauricio Gugelmin in the second Leighton House car. Row 8 will be young Frenchman Eric Bernard in the LaRousse Lamborghini, who turned 27 just Friday. Next to him will be Italian Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi. Right now with Ford power, they will have Ferrari engines next year. The rest of the field on row 9, Emanuele Pirro of Italy in the Dallara next to the Lotus of Derek Warwick of Great Britain. Recall that Lotus didn't qualify for this race last year. Row 10, Alex Caffey of Italy in the Arrows next to the Dallara of Andrea De Cesaris of Italy. Row 11 will be Nicola Larini of Italy in a Ligier next to Irishman Martin Donnelly in the Lotus Lamborghini. Row 12, Olivier Griard of France in the Osella next to the Brabham of David Brabham from Australia. And row 13, Paolo Barilla of Italy in a Minardi next to the Arrows of fellow Italian Michele Alboreto. Those who missed the cut, Philippe Alliot of France in the Ligier, the AGSs of Gabriele Tarquini and Yannick Dalmas, and the Coloni of Bertrand Cachot from Belgium. A disappointment. Those who did not pre-qualify, Roberto Moreno of Brazil and Claudio Langes of Italy for the Eurobrun team and the Life car of Italian Bruno Giacomelli. The Monteverdi team did not show up for this race. They will not run the rest of the season, they have announced, and that will cost them a cool $250,000 here in Belgium. David, how about a closer look at this great racetrack?
Well, Bob, it's 4.3 miles around here, but that's half the story. It goes from Turn 1, which is one of the slowest hairpins in Grand Prix racing, to the Turn 2 complex, which is undoubtedly one of the fastest and certainly one of the most heart-stopping corners in all of racing. 20 corners in all, tremendous amount of elevation change here, a lot of horsepower needed to get you up that long, long uphill straight. But this, in all things, is an absolute race track. The drivers here can really race and have fun.
Our weather conditions, about 72 degrees, light wind. The chance of rain, well, it's always a coin toss here in Belgium. Things can change very, very quickly. The last 2 years it has rained on this race. We hope that that will not be the case today. We are just moments from the green light for round 11 of the 1990 Formula One World Championship. It's time to go racing in Belgium. 30 seconds remain before the cars will roll off, take a reconnaissance lap, and then await the green light for round 11 of the World Championship. Bob Varsha and David Hobbs with you. Let's get down to the pit lane now and hear from John Bizignano on last-minute setups of these cars.
Actually, we're right in the middle of the Ferrari pit. We're going to move and just get out of their way a little bit before they start throwing tires at us. Not too many difficulties out on the pit, and the cars are leaving the grid right now. They have some 4 miles before we'll see them back here again. So it's a long, long warm-up lap. They're going to be trying to get their tires up to temperature. Let's let you know what's happening out on the grid. The McLaren team, everything was okay. McLaren perfect once again. A little bit of fine-tuning. Now, fine-tuning to these gentlemen means almost rebuilding the cars between warm-up and now on their warm-up lap. Everything okay. Terry Boutsen, they were all over the car relative to electrics. They were very nervous about Terry's electrics, and they want him to do so well here in his home race in Belgium. Patrese, they hardly touched the car because everyone, both crews, were all over Terry's car. Ferrari, Mansell and Prost, absolutely perfect, they say. And again, the Ferrari mechanics, they don't really like to touch too much out on the grid. They like to keep it very simple. Benetton, Piquet and Nannini, they have a little bit of problem with the gearbox bearing. They have changed that gearbox bearing, and Nannini himself says everything's okay, don't touch my car. the Lotuses of Derek Warwick and Donnelly. The clutch on Derek Warwick's car is having a big problem. He feels very uncomfortable with it, and Donnelly, he doesn't like the brake setup, and this is not a circuit to be unhappy with your brakes. You need total confidence here in every aspect of your car. Arrows are A-OK. Ken Terrell says, everything's okay, but we're about 2 seconds slow. Please, Lord, let it rain. So Ken Terrell is praying for rain. He may get his wish. Piro, the only person in a T car. Young Italian is starting from the pit lane. He had a water leak in his race car. Suspension modifications between warm-up and the start of the Belgian Grand Prix. De Cesaris, Brabham, Capelli, and Warwick. Now the start here is extra difficult for the drivers. First of all, if you can imagine, they are on the grid downhill backwards. They're almost looking at the sky. They have to have that clutch just perfect and the revs absolutely set before their cars will go off the grid and hopefully not stall. We've had some stall cars here historically in the past. It's 200 meters down to turn 1. Now the cars in the front part of the grid will be arriving at that turn at some mere 120 miles an hour. The cars at the rear of the grid, it's 3 times longer back to the rear of the grid, will be arriving at that same corner at about 155 to 165. So let's hope everyone gets through the first corner. The team managers are very worried about it. Let's hope we have a safe start here in Belgium.
All right, John, and that is a very narrow pit lane down there. Incidentally, I hope nothing important was said between Ferrari and Lotus because we lost your microphone there for a moment, and we apologize for that. Let's take a look at our onboard cameras for today's race. There you are aboard with the man himself, Terry Boutsen, and he carries a great weight on his shoulders today. He is the Belgian representative, a winner in Hungary 2 weeks ago, but as yet unsigned with the Williams team for 1991. Let's take a look at the other cars. This is Sandro Nannini's Benetton. We've been having trouble with the Benetton's cameras all weekend, but they are up now. As you can see, looking out front there, it is a very, very hazy day. There is definitely rain somewhere in the area. And as a result, we cannot get the helicopters that we need to bring you these in-car shots as high as we would like to. But we'll go to the cameras when we can. There is a look down at the Ardennes forest.
I think the problem is that the whole of Europe at the moment is under a sort of funny high-pressure system which has brought in some very humid air, and there's very little wind up here in the Ardennes today. And of course, when we all woke up this morning, there was a thick fog, and it has lifted just enough to allow this race to go on. But of course, it could presage rain, of course.
After 2 days of 85-degree heat, it is really something to see what we call more typical Spa conditions. This is the final chicane before the start-finish straightaway. This is bus stop. So called because in everyday use, it's exactly what it is. It is a bus stop. These are the public roads in this area. Riccardo Patrese there in the other Williams. He also carrying an onboard camera. In fact, he has one, I believe, looking out the rear.
Why they do this grid here beats me, because you've got this curve onto the pit straight, and they have the start-finish line immediately hit the pit straight, so half these guys are around the corner. Seems a bit of a funny way to do it. When they've got all that road in front, they could make the start-finish line.
And recall, they will run 200 meters before they will come to a near full stop and make the hairpin at La Source at about 45 miles an hour. Now, in keeping with our recent practice, once the grid is formed, we will lay out, as we say in TV, and you can call the first lap of this race yourself. Note that half the field is around the corner to the rear. Turn up the volume, enjoy the first lap. Barring incident, we'll see you at the end of lap 1. Ayrton Senna to the left is on pole. Action in mid-pack. One of the Tyrrells and Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari is off. Cars sweeping left.
Martin Donnelly's car's had it.
And some of the cars taking to the pit lane on the backside. There are 2 pit lanes here at La Source. This is the old pit lane, still used for Group C and other racing, as we take another look at what happened. Someone locked them up right in there in the area of the Benetton.
Isn't it? It's one of the Tyrrells. It was one of the insides. So it must have been Alesi. That's the Ferrari of Alain Prost, who everybody had high hopes of. The Lotuses are out. Martin Donnelly's car had the front end totally deranged.
Now there's Prost. That was Mansell's Ferrari. And there you see, looks like perhaps
Pirro, is it?
It's either Pirro or De Cesaris, and the Dallara is sideways, and that will not be allowed to stand. They will have to stop the race if he's still there when these cars come around. There is Alain Prost in car number 1. Oh, and there's Satoru Nakajima in one of the Tyrrells, and we have a red flag. Well,
of course, there's somebody else that's
remarkably fast for a red flag race.
This is up at the chicane. This has nothing to do with that start line crash. This is the chicane at Les Combes, which is really the second complex of corners here. That's Stefano Modena out for a totally different reason from that start line Chamozzle that we saw. Marshall's pushing him around. Obviously can't do a three-point turn very well in these cars.
Now, because we have a red flag, we will have a totally new start, and under Formula One rules, that means these drivers can take to spare cars should they choose. Now, here's a look at the Ferrari pit, and there is the crew hard at work on Nigel Mansell's backup race car.
So Nigel Mansell will be getting into the spare car. Unlike any other form of racing in America, except IMSA, of course, these guys can change cars, so it'll give a chance to the Lotus drivers as well. Martin Donnelly will certainly need a new car, and we're not sure of the condition of Derek Warwick's. Here we see Stefano Modena, is it, coming back?
Continuing problems. This has not been a good racetrack for Brabham. Recall a year ago when we started this race in the rain, both Brabhams went off on the reconnaissance lap, and we had to come back and pick them up in spare cars. You're on board with Terry Bootson.
Of course, these delayed starts are pretty bad on the old heart for most of these drivers, especially people like Thierry and the front row guys who really want to do well. They've got to go through all that build-up and anticipation again. It's most unpleasant.
Now here is a look at the start from on board Terry Bootson's car. Most of the action will take place behind him.
Berger going to the inside there, going from the left to the right to try and block off Alan Prost, any charge down the inside that Prost would think about going into turn one. Losing the car camera there a little bit.
Well, that certainly didn't illustrate much, as sometimes happens. We are getting our pictures from Belgian television, RTBF to be precise. Let's get more now from the pit lane with John Bizignano.
Martin Donnelly, what happened on the start? You got off the grid very well, and then everything went to heck right up in the first corner.
Obviously, being far back, we have more momentum as we get to the first corner. And I made a good start up the outside. And then somebody darted out very quickly and pushed me onto the grass. And then I got on top of the curb on the outside, lost the steering, and then Derek came out, and I touched the back of Derek.
How bad is your car?
Pretty bad. The front steering, geometry and everything, and front corner is all up the left. So
let me ask you, what's it like to have to go out on a spare car, one that you don't have that much time in all weekend?
It's not different, no different. I've been using a spare car all weekend because we've had troubles with my own race car, so it's another car.
Martin, back to the office. The cars, they say they are the same, but they're never quite exactly the same. He's going to have to do some adjusting the first couple laps.
Good point, John. You saw Nigel Mansell trying to yank the corner worker out of his car. I'm sure he'd like to use his race car if he could.
Funny you should say that, because I was just talking to Nigel Mansell last night at the dinner table, which I believe is an expression that commentators should always use, and he said that getting into these cars is like pulling on a pair of trousers, and you can tell the difference. There we see the drink bottle.
That's Paolo Barilla. I still cannot imagine how those guys can use those.
Actually, in his case, that bottle's got pasta in it.
We have cars all over the racetrack. We'll line them all up and do it all over when we return live to Spa, Belgium. Spa, Belgium. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, and John Bizignano with you. We will have a restart of the Belgian Grand Prix after a first-turn crash involving, it appeared, Nelson Piquet. Certainly both Lotus cars of Martin Donnelly and Derek Warwick, and several others as well. Nigel Mansell took the nose off his Ferrari.
Right.
Yeah. He's the only one that came to a stop right in front of our cameras. Let's get down to the pit lane for more on the situation with John.
Well, the red lights are showing over this grid, and as we said, it's a very difficult start here in Belgium. The word is now it's going to be 5 minutes until the pit lane closed. Anyone caught in the pit lane after the pit lane is closed, they have to start from the pit lane. And can you imagine Pirot in the T car? He actually spun the car and killed the engine coming out of the pit lane. It's a very downhill, difficult pit lane exit there, but his crash was not involving the other cars. He did it all by himself. 20 minutes until the restart of the Belgian Grand Prix, so we'll try and get some information of exactly what happened out there on the first try here in Belgium.
Thank you, John. I recall my first Formula One race in Austria back in 1987. I came over and thought, hey, I do 24-hour sports car races. Formula One, 90-minute, 2-hour race, no big deal. Wouldn't you know, I would host the first Formula One race in history to have 2 red flags. Chris Economaki and I sat around for about 90 minutes without a whole lot to talk about.
Well, of course, there used to be a clause where they had to wait for 45 minutes. They've got rid of that now, luckily, so they just regroup as soon as they can. There's Ron Dennis, the McLaren team chief, talking to one of the officials fairly vociferously by the look of things.
He had a tremendous crash yesterday in qualifying, stopped the session for about 14 minutes after he put a wheel off near the start-finish line and spun it into the barriers. There you see the field preparing to restart this event. We'll take a quick timeout and return live to Spa-Francorchamps, Belgium, and the Grand Prix of Belgium. Stay with us.
Clever and very...
Well, we continue to have a couple of audio problems here in Belgium. In addition to the weather, we're having some technical problems. There you see Gerhard Berger contemplating life in his McLaren. We are about 15 minutes from a restart after a red flag for a crash at the first corner of the Belgian Grand Prix, so we'll do it all over.
Another thing about these restarts, of course, these Formula One cars, as you know, are the lightest racing cars. They only weigh just over 1,000 pounds, and so everything is cut down to a minimum. And that includes the clutches. They have a multiple plate clutch, but it's a very small diameter. It's a dinky looking little thing. And when these guys do these standing starts, of course, they rev these engines. Now they're revving in neutral, well, in gear, at about 12,000 RPM, at which point, of course, they just drop the clutch. Well, the clutch is okay for one of those and then the subsequent race, but a couple of them probably puts an awful lot of strain on that clutch. They're not really designed to do that time and time again.
Let's find out more about the Brabham team situation with John Bizignano.
David Brabham, starting from, well, let's say the back of the grid, that's an honest statement. What did you see when you arrived at turn 1?
Well, when I got into turn 1, I saw a lot of smoke, and I thought, well, they're locking up, and they're obviously going to hit each other. And sure enough, they did, and Martin Donnelly, who's in front of me, went down the outside on the grass, and I think someone else either got hit and got out there, and they had a big hit together there, and one of the Ferraris was on the side, and it was just a case of just waiting for everyone to get through, and even all the way up round the course there was Stefano and Nakajima all on the side, so it was a pretty hectic first lap.
You say hectic. I mean, how quickly do you have to react when cars in front of you are going left, right, up in the air, into the grass, over the guardrail? I mean, is it just luck that you get through, or do you put on the binders and hope?
Yeah, a lot of it is good luck, and you've really got to judge on what other people are going to do, and it's probably happening in split seconds, but you do actually have, in your mind, you do have time to think about which way to go, as long as you keep cool,
Can you even see the start lights from back here? You're halfway around the corner, uphill. Don't you think this is somewhat of a ridiculous place to have the Formula One Grand Prix starting from?
Because they've got lights where the pit entrance is, and we can see them as plain as day, so it's no problem.
Wouldn't you like to be able to see the competitors go off in front of you, though?
Sorry?
Would you not like to see the competitors go off in front of you rather than trusting the secondary light?
Well, yeah, that is true, but I wouldn't like to start down the hill either, so, if everyone kept their cool and used some brains around here, they might get around the first corner.
Does it worry you to go out and do this again now? I mean, you've just had one bad start, several cars destroyed, and you're going to do it. Just 20 minutes later, you're going to do the same thing. How can you do that?
Well, you want to do it. You want to get around the first corner safely, and obviously it's such a tight corner that people just stop, so you've got to anticipate people stopping, so you just can't go in so hard from the back. Obviously up front, yeah, maybe, but I think it's sometimes an advantage to sit at the back here, watch it all happen, watch them all hit each other, and then hopefully you can get through yourself without being silly.
Well, don't be silly, Dad. I know you want to get back in the car. Thank you.
David Brabham driving for the team founded by his father decades ago. There you see Jean Alesi talking to one of his crewmen. It brings up the point that John mentioned right off the start. It's about a 200-meter run to the first corner, but only for the pole sitter. Everybody else is further back, has more time and more distance to get up to racing speed, and arrives at the corner much more quickly.
Well, they arrive at the corner more quickly, and of course, just like any road situation that most of our viewers must have been in countless times, you come on a traffic queue on a freeway or a highway, And there's a guy with a red flag, and he's waving the traffic down. And as the traffic slows up, the guys near the back have to stop harder than the guys at the front. And, of course, you have to make all that into allowance when you arrive at turn 1 here. When all the cars are together, you do have to brake harder and harder the further back down the line you go.
Let's take another look at what happened. If you missed it off the top, Ayrton Senna to the left of your screen is the pole sitter, Gerhard Berger to the right. And watch the middle of your screen, as best you can, as they arrive at the first corner. An entire row of cars in the middle lock up their brakes, and then it is absolute chaos.
Unfortunately, don't blame us for the frame picture in the right-hand picture of your right-hand corner of the picture there. Nothing to do with us.
That was a bit of a shame. It might have given us a much better view of what happened, but that's the way the Belgian folks.
If you want to complain about that, right to Crestwood, Kentucky.
Here we go. This is another view without the box shot this time, as everybody dives left, hoping to use that grassy strip for passing if they have to.
Mansell is completely on his own there, looking out of in no one's way at all, and he gets nailed from the back by one of those Tyrrells, which nudges him round, spins him round, and of course that forces everybody to go to their left. And there you see Martin Donnelly coming away with the front of his car well and truly in disarray.
This is a significant race in more ways than one. The Belgian Grand Prix. Coming into this race, Ayrton Senna, the points leader by 10 points, as we mentioned. But he already has 8-point scoring finishes this year. The 5-minute board being shown to the competitors. Now, you can only count your best 11 finishes for the Driver Championship. So, if all goes well, as soon as the Portuguese Grand Prix in about a month's time, Ayrton Senna may have to start dropping points. Or, in other words, he will get rid of an inferior finish in order to accept a superior one, but his worst finish in the points has been a third. We'll be right back to Belgium.
Formule 1, Grand Prix de Belgique.
Never know who you're going to run into in Belgium, do you?
We wondered where he was, and he was here in Belgium.
King
all
looks
along.
pretty good, I think, for a guy who's been dead for 13 years. That, of course, was not... That is not Elvis either. That was Mr. Felicie Bai, an Elvis impersonator who was a part of a pre-race review put together by a hotel here in Belgium. And I got to tell you, he's got the King's moves down pat. He only has one certain drawback, and that is he does not speak a word of English. And boy, did that room full of Italians and Germans and Brits and Frenchmen come to their feet when he did Elvis's big Vegas finish, the medley between Dixie and the Battle Hymn of the Republic with the girls and the brass and everything. Oh, that was hip. Let's get an update on our situation under the red flag here from John Bizignano.
Bob, they've just buttoned up Nelson Piquet's car. An awful lot of work being done on that car. And what you have to realize is that there are spare cars out here, but there are also cars that have had a lot of repairs done to them. John Alesi, he just had the front wing replaced on his Tyrrell, and they're asking us to get off the grid. But the point we want to make is there are many cars that are being pushed into this particular race with a great deal of maintenance done to them. A lot of aerodynamics, rear wings, front wings, suspension work. Has to be very unsettling for these drivers to go out there and just repeat what ended up in an accident with a lot of new parts on the car.
No question about it, John, and you brought up the thought that I was hoping to mention earlier. It cannot be the same car that you get into. Even if it's your race car, it's been bent. If it's your spare car, it can't be identical to the original one.
Well, as Nigel said last night, it's certainly not the same pair of trousers when you get into the spare car, especially if the spare car, as most of these teams have a spare car assigned to one of the drivers for the weekend. If the wrong driver needs it in the race, when it finally comes down to the race, it's not set up for him at all. Now, we're not quite sure on the Ferrari who that car was set up for this weekend. It may have been Nigel's choice anyway, in which case it would have been set up for him. But if it was set up for Prost, he may not like it in the race.
And that would be my guess, because he's running second in points, whereas Nigel is out in left field. There is a look at the weather conditions we're facing. It is not raining, but it is certainly foggy, cool, but very, very humid here today in Belgium. And after 2 days of 85-degree heat, I'm sure many of these engineers are wondering whether, in fact, they have the right setup.
Well, it's just one of those things you have to go with. You say it's cool. It's not that cool. I mean, it's 75 degrees. It's a very odd day, clammy as anything. You probably noticed a lot of the drivers have got drink bottles. We saw Barilla with his attacks, and here they go off on another exploratory lap. Berger again doing that right to left move to deter anybody going down the inside.
And this is just a warm-up.
This is Nigel's chance to get to know that car. And, of course, Martin Donnelly in the Lotus.
The cars can be refueled under this red flag, and that could be important. 44 laps scheduled of the 4.3-mile Spa circuit. And fuel very important, particularly when you're driving a V10 or V12 engine that uses a good bit more fuel than the V8s.
There you see the O-Roos that we were talking about. They come into that corner in 6th gear, enter it at about 175 miles an hour, throw themselves at this hill, and burst out through Radion on the long up climb to Les Cônes.
Top speeds on this circuit touching 200 miles an hour. 154 miles an hour in the warm-up at that start-finish line for Alain Prost, and then just 200 meters to get that Ferrari woed down. Getting back to my point earlier about points coming in, I mentioned that Ayrton Senna has 8 point-scoring finishes, all first, seconds, and thirds. Alain Prost, 10 points behind in second, I think is in a better situation.
It is a great track. Still going slightly downhill now. We come to the last corner. This is Stavelot. Close to the village of Stavelot, which lies off to our left, picture left. And we're just about to rejoin. That what we've just been on is special racetrack. Just about to rejoin the main road from Stavelot back to Spa, through the village of Francorchamps, which is where the start-finish line actually is, just on the approach to the village garage, where you can get your petrol or gasoline. That is, of course, if you can afford it here in Europe. Gasoline here in Europe this weekend. I put some petrol in our Citroen rent-a-car the other day. It cost me a cool 45 bucks for 35 litres of gas.
And it could get worse as we all watch the newspapers and the televisions. Our thoughts are with all of the people in and out of uniform in the Middle East this weekend and everyone who has friends and loved ones over there. It's a very difficult situation, and as David points out, perhaps even more so here in Europe than in the United States. It has a very, very strong economic impact as well. To the business at hand, this racetrack was once nearly 9 miles long and featured such corners as the Mastic Kink, taken at 160, 170 miles an hour, shooting the gap between a couple of farmhouses. That is no longer a part of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. It has been shortened to 4.3 miles, but it has really lost very little of its original character, I think, David.
It has. They've done a superb job with this new track and kept some of the old parts right here, going down to La Source hairpin. And, of course, it is a real driver's track. Tremendous fun and very exhilarating, but very, very demanding. It's hard work around here.
Once again, the cars will roll into position. We will lay out, and you can call the first lap, barring an accident. Note it is uphill and around the corner. Somebody dove into the pit lane there. We'll get more on that. One of the cars, I believe is one of the Dolaras, is in the pit lane. Let's hope we get through this lap. Turn it up and enjoy.
Berger, which really got...
Berger got in front of Prost, almost got him out of shape as he got on the brakes, and then Terry Boutsen took advantage, got in front of Berger.
Two Ferraris going down to Eau Rouge, side by side.
They are together. Senna, Boutsen, Berger, Nannini, Prost, Mansell. Looked like he was taking a challenge there from Nelson Piquet. Nannini tucked into 4th place there. I think Piquet is on.
Oh, no.
Folks, I hope you're well provisioned for this one.
Oh, well, now we're getting into the dangerous area for those clutches. 3 starts.
And there's the reason. Parts strewn all over the racetrack in the need of a fire truck at Paolo Barilla's accident. He is out of the car, over the wall, and apparently all right. There's Andrea de Cesaris presiding over his car being removed, and the oil flag is out with the red and yellow stripes. Pushing that wheel isn't going to help much, bud.
Where is it? I can't just quite pick that up. Oh,
A collision between the two. That's Pierluigi Martini. That's Paolo Barilla's teammate colliding with de Cesaris, a separate incident.
And that is another incident, exactly. That's up at Les Cônes, at the top of the hill. His car looks to be okay as he pulls off. De Cesaris is out.
Well, I have now reset my personal record for red flags in a Formula One race. That is the car of Paulo Barilla. There is Ayrton Senna sitting on the starting grid once again, shaking his head in wonderment, no doubt. You can see his car coast backwards. It is an uphill start, so he has to keep his foot on the brake, which complicates things enormously when you drop the clutch, as David mentioned earlier.
Oh, dear. Well, this is going to be very harrowing for these guys. Gerhard Berger nearly fouled that start up. He's got this hang-up about blocking his inside there, guarding his inside as they go down to La Source, and he made a poor start, and of course still moved over to the right, his right, and so nearly had Alain Prost stop. It was untrue.
Got a look there from Terry Boutsen's car on the grid.
That car is an incredible mess. Obviously, it's ripped the gearbox and rear suspension right off.
A testament to the strength of these cars in their most important function, which is, of course, protecting the driver. You saw the driver's compartment completely intact. And for that, Paulo Barilla can count his blessings. De Cesaris, other than a flat right rear, that car doesn't seem to be too badly off.
I think he's trying to push start it. I think he's got visions of driving back and changing cars again. Or he can have another car, of course, now for another red flag start, I suppose.
I believe he's going to find himself sidelined for getting a push start. If that's what happens, you can't do that in a racing situation, only in practice. Well, we'll take a quick timeout here to sort things out and rejoin you live for one of the longest Grand Prix ever run at Spa, Belgium. Red flag situation in today's Grand Prix of Belgium. Hey, nice seats, hey, bub? Folks have come from all over Europe and indeed around the world as the Formula One World Championship heats up, entering the final 6 races of the 1990 season.
Oh, no wonder his car's badly. I can at last see where he is. That, of course, is at the top. That is Radillon, the top of that Eau Rouge complex. Well, if he just got away from that, he's an extremely lucky boy, but you can see the sort of damage you expect to do to your car there. If you go off the road there, you have to be doing around about 160 miles an hour. It's as simple as that. So if you have a crash, it's a big one.
Let's get down to the pit lane now and talk to one of the most important men in Formula One with John Bizignano.
Ron Dennis, chief of this fabulous McLaren team. You were talking to the flagman here. Do you think that it should have been stopped this second time?
I don't actually think it should have been stopped the first time. They were very clear in the driver's briefing that unless there was a complete obstruction of the circuit or a driver in some degree of danger, then they would continue to race. And there was a few cars off, yes, but there was all around the circuit was a clear road. The second start was even more extreme. The driver was out of the car was pretty much off the circuit. There's certainly no need to stop the second race. Perhaps we should just keep having starts until there's a Ferrari in the lead.
Wouldn't that be interesting? What does it do to the cars to go through 3 standing starts like this? How does it affect the mechanics of the automobiles?
Well, obviously all the drivetrain is subjected to its most critical loadings when the car's full of fuel. And this circuit's even a little worse than normal because it's a very grippy circuit and it's an uphill start. So if you had to sort of guess where cars are going to get the biggest loads on their clutches and drivetrains, you'd say it would be Spa. So, you know, fortunately, at the moment, it seems like we've built them strong enough and they still seem to get off the line, but it's obviously frustrating for the drivers.
Well, RD, let's hope that number 3 is the lucky one for Team McLaren here.
It's not about the first lap, is it? It's about the last.
Absolutely.
And we will have a complete 44 laps, or 2 hours, whichever comes first. And in Spa, it will definitely be the full 44 laps. We have yet to complete a full 2 laps in this race. We have had 2 red flags. And in fairness to Ron Dennis, he could not see what happened to Paulo Barilla at the top of Radillon. Not only did they have a car in a very, very dangerous place on the racetrack, but they also had some concern about the fate of the driver. They needed to get safety vehicles on the course. So in that respect, I will differ with Ron. I think a red flag was definitely called for in that situation.
Well, maybe in the second one, but I think he's right in the first one. Because with such a long lap, I mean, nearly 2-minute lap for the first flying lap, all the stuff that was broken down at the side of the road could have easily been cleared up by the time. The only car that really needed pushing out of the way was Mansell's. And, of course, Pirot, who spun, leaving the pit exit of all places. But they could have been all got out of the way in 2 minutes easily enough. And they could have carried on with the race.
Well, officials took a beating in the press after they failed to show a red flag in Germany early this year when Emanuele Pirro collided with Felipe Ayo and went into the wall. Safety trucks were on the course as the race continued, and the field came flying across the start-finish line, passing safety workers on the track at 160 miles an hour. So, personally, I think you probably err on the side of conservatism.
Well, officials the world over just seem to be a bit like in my shower this morning. They're either hot or they're cold. You never know what the heck they're going to do next. And one day they'll be wandering around with blokes lying in the middle of the road and the race still goes on. And another time there's nothing there at all and they have a red flag. And I think the start today, the first start was a bit that way. The second one, yes. Barilla's car was spread all over the road at the top of Lake there Radion. You see it now at Radion. You have to face the fact that if you're going to go off the road at Eau Rouge, the Radion complex is going to be serious. There you see the gearbox broken off the car complete. The input shaft going into it there. The monocoque severely duffed up. Thierry, you've been in Formula One 7 years. Are you as satisfied with it as you would like to be?
Well, it can always be better. I mean, if I was world champion every year, I would be more satisfied. And luckily, I had to drive sometimes in teams and cars that were not capable of winning races. It's only for the last 2 years that I've been in the top team, and I enjoy it much more now, even than in the beginning. But that's part of the learning process. You have to start in a small team and then go into a better team, then a better team again.
How about your motivation in Formula One? Still as strong?
Well, it's even stronger now than it used to be before, because I've got a good car, I'm driving for a very good team. The engine that we have, the Renault engine, is very powerful, very good engine. I've got all the necessary bits together for winning, and we have to get the right setup at the right time, at the right moment to be winning the race, which we haven't done yet this year. But it will come. We need a little bit more testing, a little bit more little things, a little bit more details, better details, and then we'll be winning races consistently.
What are we going to see you in next year? The same, or are you going to move on?
I don't know. Don't know yet. No decision made yet about anything for next year. But what I can say is that I feel very happy about my position today. It's a good team, and I'd like to continue with it if everything goes as it is going at the moment.
Are you happy with the way Formula One is being governed and run at the moment?
Well, it's very successful at the moment. A lot of spectators, very good audience on television, very good races this year. I think it's at the moment it's the top of the sport, the top of the motorsport is Formula One, and it's because of all the efforts put together by FISA and Bernie Ecclestone. I think it's very, very good sport.
You mentioned IndyCar racing. Just to be specific, would you like to do the Indy 500?
I would love to do that one day, yeah. Yeah, that's something I would love to do, but at the moment it's absolutely impossible for me to even think about it. It's like doing a big rally. One day I would like to do a big rally somewhere, but World Championship rally. But again, you know, you need a lot of preparation for that. And I think if I want to do Indy 500, I want to do the whole championship more than anything else.
Well, perhaps Terry Boutsen will have that decision to make someday. As you could tell from the interview, it took place before his victory in Hungary last week. Terry now has that victory, but he does not have a situation with the Williams team for 1991 as yet. In fact, speculation says that he will be going back to the Arrows team, which will have the benefit of Porsche power next year.
Which may be a very, very strong package. Porsche, very unlike them to come up with a poor engine. They haven't been as successful in the IndyCar racing as they'd hoped, but I think that their engine in the Arrows car will certainly improve their chances. But one has to face the fact that Formula One is just so competitive that you've just got to have everything right, and about the only people that at the moment have got everything going for them consistently are the McLarens. The Ferraris obviously are a hot second, but they do have unreliability problems still. And the Benetton Fords are really coming on. There's Nigel sitting down getting ready for his third start of the day. He'll be well and truly ticked off.
If you are just joining us as you take a look at Eric Bernard there from the LaRousse team, you haven't missed a thing. We have had 2 red flags, once on the first start with a big first-term Chamazel and 2 other incidents elsewhere on the race course, then a restart after a big crash at Radion, a single-car affair involving Paolo Barillo. Let's get down to the pit lane now and John Bizignano.
They're not going to have any spare parts left down here, David and Bob. They've used up nose cones, rear wings. This is what they use for tracking the car. This sets a car up as far as toe in, toe out, camber, caster, and it's absolutely has to be spot on, or these cars wandering down the straightaways is a bit of an unguided missile. All this equipment just came off Andrea Di Cesaris' car. in the Scuderia Italia team. Andrea, of course, was involved in that accident, and his mental situation at this point, start number 3 coming up for him, has to be a little bit different than maybe someone who hasn't been involved in the accident. And Andrea Di Cesaris from Italy. Now, David, I have a question for you. They just set up this car. The car has to be at a 7-degree angle to the left and about a 4-degree angle with the nose in the air. Now, when I've seen them set cars up before, they go through an awful lot of trouble actually trying to get the car perfectly flat. How do they do this when the car's nose is up in the air and the left side of the car is totally loaded?
Well, that's a jolly good question. The fact does remain that racing teams go to a great deal of trouble to set their cars, usually on a surface plate, which costs thousands of dollars to buy, and then another time it'll have a wheel half ripped off and the lap times drop about 0.2 of a second. And it just makes you wonder sometimes how much some of that ultimate precision really does matter when the chips are down and the cars are going round.
There is Gerhard Berger. You
They're
can see the
strapped back
tear-off
in.
shields on his visor. He has at least 3 on, and I'm sure he'll use them all today.
11 minutes to go.
And we will take a couple of those minutes now for a quick commercial message. We hope to come back for another restart of the Belgium at Spa-Francorchamps, Belgium. And if you overslept your alarm, missed the start of the race, well, actually you didn't. You didn't miss the first start. Well, you missed the first start. You also missed the second start. And now you're right on time to catch the 3rd attempt at getting this race started. We had 3 separate incidents at the first attempt to start the race, including a big 4-car schmozzle at the first corner that put Nigel Mansell's Ferrari into the wall and knocked Martin Donnelly's Lotus out of the race entirely. We then attempted a restart, and Paulo Barilla had a huge wreck at the top of Radillon, the top of the hill just above Eau Rouge, and he is out of the race as well. But the teams have come back. We will run a complete 44 laps. If you look at the car of Jean Alesi.
Relaxing in the car there, hands on the mirrors, thinking, sacre bleu, let's get this show on the road and let's try and get a few laps under our belts here. Very, very frustrating for the driver. There you see his tear-off strips ready for him to put his hands on to whip them off.
Alain Prost with the yellow-shirted Ferrari crew standing around. He has been the subject of a bit of a controversy this weekend. On Friday, as you take a look there at Pierluigi Martini's Minardi, on Friday the Ferrari team issued a press release in Italian only, which is unusual. Usually they circulate them in several languages. This Italian press release said that Alain Prost had re-signed for the 1991 season. Yesterday, we heard from a source high up in the Ferrari organization that that is not the case, that Prost has not yet re-signed. And the rumor has it that Nigel Mansell just cannot wait until they re-sign Prost as their #1 driver for next year, Nigel having announced his retirement. Nigel apparently will consider that a violation of his contract, which calls for him to be the #1 driver.
All jolly confusing. One has to wonder why Nigel is quite so uptight about this contract business when, in theory, he is going to retire next year, which brings to mind all sorts of legal actions that are going to be flying around. So everybody here in a state of great anticipation for Alain Prost to put his pen to paper.
And now, a full 60 minutes after we did it the first time, let me reset the grid for you, and we'll tell you the status of the cars as we can. Ayrton Senna will be on the pole in the McLaren Honda next to teammate Gerhard Berger. The second row will be Alain Prost in the Ferrari and Terry Boutsen in the Williams Renault. Row 3, Nigel Mansell and Sandro Nannini. Row 4 will be Riccardo Patrese and Nelson Piquet. Row 5, Jean Alesi and Satoru Nakajima, his teammate. Row 6 will not be Aguri Suzuki. He apparently does not have a backup LaRousse Lola for the race, and he is out. Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House will be on row 6. Row 7, Stefano Modena, who has already had a problem this morning, but he apparently will restart, next to Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton House. Row 8, Eric Bernard in the LaRousse, next to Pierluigi Martini. Row 9, Emanuele Pirro and Derek Warwick in the Lotus. Row 10, Alex Caffey. Andrea De Cesaris, who has already had a crash this morning, will apparently restart. Row 11, Nicola Larini and Martin Donnelly, whose car has apparently been repaired during the second red flag. He will get another shot since we will have a complete restart. There is Ayrton Senna, the pole sitter. Row 12 will be Olivier Griard in the Osella, David Brabham in the Brabham. And row 13 was to be Paulo Barilla. He is no doubt out of the race after comprehensively riding off his Minardi at Radillon. And the 26th and final starter, Michele Alboreto, in the Arrows Cosworth.
Who, incidentally, went incredibly well in this morning's warm-up. And he may well pick his way through this field today if he gets a chance.
As you can see, the lousy weather has done nothing to dampen the enthusiasm of the crowd, although they, truth be told, are probably at least a little bit stunned. After 2 red flags, 30-second board being shown, we will take a complete lap.
Now, of course, one has to wonder whether they can make 2 absolutely clean starts, just like they did the last time. It was a clean start. It was after the start that we had the big crash. Boy, oh boy.
You're on board with Riccardo Patrese as the field rolls off for the 3rd time here at Spa. Ayrton Senna will lead the way, followed by Gerhard Berger and the 2 red and white McLarens. There's Alain Prost in the Ferrari, followed by Terry Boutsen in the blue and yellow Benetton, Nigel Mansell, Sandro Nannini, Riccardo Patrese, Nelson Piquet. Here they come down the old start-finish line used for supporting races here. Down to the bottom of this draw, and there they flick left and right at Eau Rouge.
And it's just at about that point as they go out of the picture to your left that Paolo Barilla must have lost it and hit the wall upon which this camera virtually is sitting. And it goes around the corner there. It funnels down. Once you're committed to this right-hander, you're absolutely committed. One wonders what Gerhard Berger's going to do on this next start. He's done a pretty judicious bit of moving from picture right to picture left. Both of those starts. Very nearly had Prost off the last time. And I'm wondering if Prost has communicated any message to him in the intervening time.
On the Kemmel straightaway, here comes Terry Boutsen. There is Nigel Mansell in the number 2 Ferrari.
Terry will be pretty upset about that red flag because he was lying in a strong 2nd spot. And
this is Lecombe. Excuse me, David. Now the downhill run begins. Lecombe is about the highest point on the racetrack. Then it is steeply downhill.
All this is downhill. This long right-hander is a terrible understeer. It's very difficult to get the car to go around here. If you tune out the understeer to go to that corner, it's liable to oversteer this next left-hander and subsequently. So it's always a very tricky corner, that long downhill. And then, of course, we come down this long straight, up into 5th gear as we go under that bridge. And we come into this corner, the Pouhon, still going downhill. And as you'll be able to see from this shot, it's a perfect double apex. There's the first apex right there. They swing wide. And we're not going to see the second
out of the
apex.
picture.
Oh, here we go. The helicopter's swinging around. No, he's going,
he's
going the
climbing
wrong
the hill.
way. Never mind. Trust me, it's a very difficult corner.
There is Riccardo Patrese. He has just gone through Pouhon. Then he'll have a short series of right and left-handers.
Down to Stavolo here, which starts off as a 3rd gear right. They accelerate here, goes up to 4th. And then he'll take 5th about here. And then this is where we saw earlier on, they join the old road. That's the road coming in from the left there from Stavolo village. And at this point, he would normally be going into 6th gear. And from here on up to the bus stop, it's absolutely flat out. But it entails going through Blanchiment, just past this Campari bridge, which is a very fast double left. Extremely fast. Now you see all that runoff area on the right. Just a year ago, the guardrail was about 2 feet off the side of the road, just like it is on the left of the picture now. The guardrail used to be like that, on the right as well, and it was a pretty daunting corner. This right here is the quickest bit.
Let's get a quick update from the pit lane and John Visignano.
David and Bob, everyone has cleared the pit lane except Martin Donnelly. Now, Martin Donnelly has gone from race car driver to TV commentator. During the second crash, he actually left his team area, went up to the Eurosport broadcast booth, and now he is back in Derek Warwick's race car. So he is very unfamiliar in that particular car. He has never, ever sat in this car before. The engine has started on the car. He will be starting from the pit lane. So he's gone from race car driver to TV commentator and back to race car driver, all in about 35 minutes.
In an unfamiliar car on one of the most dangerous racetracks in the world.
Well, he's starting at the back of the grid, so he's got that first lap because he'll be all on his own, because he'll join on after the others have gone, which will give him a bit of a chance to acclimatise himself.
I guess us not talking during the first lap is the jinx in all of this, so we will try to call this first lap this time. At least that way we'll get the jump on whatever incident happens.
There you see the cars pulling up again with this curve in the grid. The rear cars have to... There's the green flag, which means the back guys are ready. The red lights are on.
And once again, Gerhard Berger drifts left, but not nearly so far. Here comes Prost. Nigel right up against the rail. Senna kicks up a puff of smoke. Gently, boys, gently.
Couldn't stand another one.
Using the handy bit of new paving off to the left. Watch guys like Nigel Mansell, and they'll be using it all day.
Thierry Boutsen did a bit of nerfing then, and in fact nudged Alain Prost. Dust kicked up there at Radion. That's 175-mile-an-hour left-hand corner there, boys. Don't go putting your wheel off the edge there.
Derek Warwick trying to make time. You saw him pull the Lotus out, but here approaching 195 cents.
To keep the opposition behind you, because you obviously just never know where the guy's going to go to.
This is from on board Sandro Nannini's car, and recall the ominous words he said after his collision in Hungary with the man just ahead of him, Ayrton Senna. He said, all right, now I know what the rules are, and next time I will remember.
Look at the way that Honda pulls away, though. Every time they come to acceleration, right now, terrific grunt low down of that Honda V10 as it pulls away. Nannini quick through here, though.
I don't think anybody would dispute that once Ayrton Senna is up to speed, there is no man in Formula 1 harder to catch. So our order is shuffled once again. It is Senna, Nannini, Prost, and Piquet. Great X Thursday, August 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time live. It's the NFL on ESPN. We'll have the Buffalo Bills versus the Chicago Bears. The Bears trying to continue their rebuilding process under Mike Ditka. And the Bills, of course, wanting to take the next big step up after nearly getting out of the AFC playoffs last year. It'll be the Buffalo Bills and the Chicago Bears coming to you from Columbia, South Carolina, next Thursday night, August 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time live here on ESPN. We are coming to you live from 43 career victories. It is hard to believe. The fog is lifting slowly here at Spa as our cameramen search madly for a car to shoot.
Sun shining there. You can see the shadows of the trees there as the sun starts to go around the back of the mountains here.
Once again, our pictures are coming to us courtesy of RTBF television in Belgium. On board with Sandro Nannini, running in the third spot.
Downhill Malmedy.
That is a slower car, a lapped machine just ahead of him. Alain Prost is gone.
Alboreto, I guess, is it? Must be Alboreto or Cafe.
Yeah, one of the Arrows cars. The gap now 11 seconds from first to second. Senna back to Prost. Another 9 seconds to this man, Sandro Nannini. Gerhard Berger 2.5 seconds behind Nannini. Piquet 3/4 of a minute back in the fifth spot. And Mauricio Gugelmin trails Piquet by 5.
Now he's
out. The Benetton management is not very happy with that. They think it's going to cost him just too much time, and they're still too far to go for that set of rubber. We'll keep you updated from the Benetton pits. Let's hope they stop. Let's hope Alessandro Nannini doesn't run out of rubber too soon.
Well, he's certainly running out of grip, John. As you were speaking, he was having a pretty lurid slide through Malmedy, coming into the Pouhon here, using up plenty of road. Looks like the car's developed a bit of understeer.
We'll take a quick timeout as the laps run short here in Belgium. Finally, after 2 red flags, we should have a great finish. I'm live from Darlington International Raceway. Wait a minute, it's not September 2nd. This is next week. Behind Southern 500, Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, Ned Jarrett, all the gang there to bring you the action. Dale Earnhardt, the defending champion. Who else to tame the track they say is too tough to tame? Here in Belgium, Ayrton Senna is our leader. Slide, David's favorite word. On the up Belgium, where the celebration is about to begin in Victory Lane. Your results, Ayrton Senna with his 25th career Formula 1 victory. Alain Prost finishes second for Ferrari. Gerhard Berger third for the McLaren team. Sandro Nannini brings his Benetton home fourth, followed by Nelson Piquet, Maurizio Gugelmin, Ivan Capelli, Jean Alesi, Eric Bernard, Alex Caffey, Derek Warwick, Mark Donnelly, Michele Alboreto, Nicola Larini, Pierluigi Martini, Olivier Briard, and Stefano Modena, the last classified finisher. Alain Prost, fast lap of the race at 1 minute 55.087 seconds, a new record. Coming up after us at 10:30 Eastern Time today, This Week in Sports, a review of the top stories in sports this week. We hope you'll stay for that at 10:30 Eastern Time. We'll take a quick time out and come back live to Spa, Belgium to wrap things up. theater and its upcoming festival, and of course to the casino. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium has been brought to you by Mobil. Mobil One Synthetic Motor Oil. Isn't your car worth the extra protection? By Alpine Car Audio Systems and your authorized Alpine dealer. Alpine, standard equipment in every Lamborghini made. And by Wagner, power painting that's not just a whole lot faster, but a whole lot better. With his victory, Ayrton Senna of Brazil expands his lead in the 1990 World Championship over Alain Prost from 10 points to 13. It is Senna 63, Prost 50. Gerhard Berger now has 33 points. In the manufacturer's standings, McLaren with 96 points to Ferrari's 63.
One stroke off the pace.